In the heart of Central America, where the ancient Maya and Pipil civilizations once flourished, lies a land steeped in mystery. This is El Salvador, a place of rich history, deep-rooted traditions, and hidden secrets. But beneath the surface of this predominantly Catholic nation, there is a story that has remained untold for centuries. A story that whispers through the corridors of time, defying the silence imposed by history. Historians and archaeologists have debated the idea that Muslim explorers, perhaps Moors fleeing the Reconquista, or West African traders, may have reached the Americas long before Columbus. Though the evidence is speculative, it is enough to ignite the imagination. If, deep in the pre-Columbian past, there were encounters between indigenous peoples and Muslim travelers, what if the seeds of Islam were sown in the rich soil of Central America, only to be buried by the sands of time? The year was 1524. The Spanish, driven by the dual forces of conquest and conversion, arrived in El Salvador with a singular purpose: to claim the land and its people for the Spanish crown and the Catholic Church. Led by Pedro de Alvarado, they fought their way through resistance, through blood and fire, until the indigenous peoples were subdued. With the Spanish conquest came the imposition of a new religion, one that would dominate every aspect of life in the colony. Catholicism became the law of the land, and any trace of other beliefs, be they indigenous or foreign, was systematically erased. The Church became the central institution, the arbiter of morality, the enforcer of faith. For centuries, the Catholic Church held sway over every facet of life in El Salvador. Any vestiges of Islam, if they ever existed, were obliterated, hidden beneath layers of colonial rule, lost to history. But history, like the tide, is never truly still. As the world was reshaped by wars, revolutions, and economic upheavals, new waves of people found their way to El Salvador. Among them were immigrants from the Middle East, Lebanese, Palestinians, Syrians, fleeing the turmoil of the Ottoman Empire and seeking a new life in the Americas. They arrived with little more than their determination and their faith. In the midst of a predominantly Catholic society, these immigrants quietly began to establish their lives. They opened shops, integrated into the local economy, and gradually formed close-knit communities. Though small in number, they carried with them the traditions of their homeland, cultural practices, languages, and, for some, the Islamic faith. Islam in El Salvador began not with grand mosques or public declarations, but with quiet, intimate gatherings. In rented rooms, in the privacy of their homes, Muslim families would gather to pray, to observe their faith in a land far removed from the traditions of the Middle East. It was a private faith, practiced behind closed doors, away from the eyes of a society that knew little of Islam. By the mid-20th century, the Muslim community in El Salvador had grown enough to establish a place of worship. The first mosque, modest in its construction, was built in the capital, San Salvador. It became a focal point for the community, a place where they could gather, worship, and educate their children in the ways of their faith. This small mosque was more than just a building. It was the identity for a community that had, for so long, kept its faith hidden. Here they could speak their language, practice their customs, and teach their children the tenets of Islam. Yet even as they built their community, they remained largely invisible to the broader society, a minority within a minority, practicing their faith in the shadows of a predominantly Catholic nation.
When some years ago, when the community began, the Arab descendants were somewhat closed. They, as Arabs, they didn't want any non-Arab. One characteristic of our community is most of us are native Salvadorans. We have but few Arabs.
Hi, my name is Amadia. I'm from El Salvador. I'm Muslim, and yeah.
How many years? ¿Cuántos años?
Like 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Okay, all right. Hello.
Hi, hola, mi nombre es Doris Quintanilla y bueno, he abrazado el Islam hace poco, pero para mí el Islam me ha descubierto la vida, me ha entrado a otro mundo. Encuentro muy maravilloso conocer el Islam. Los invito siempre a conocer el Islam, a buscar, a investigar y no dejarse ir por otros mitos, de verdad. Salam alaikum.
Okay.
Mi nombre es Doris, yo abracé el Islam hace 19 años. He tratado de llevar una vida con base al Corán y la sunna del profeta sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Y alhamdulillah, estoy feliz de estar en el Islam.
Okay. Bueno. No.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Mi nombre es Palestina, tengo 17 años y hace más o menos un año entré al mundo del Islam y me siento muy cómoda.
For decades, Islam in El Salvador remained a quiet undercurrent, largely unnoticed by the mainstream. The community was small, insular, and focused on preserving its faith in a foreign land. Yet, beneath the surface, changes were stirring that would bring Islam out of the shadows and into the light. In 2015, a young politician named Nayib Bukele burst onto the scene, capturing the imagination of the Salvadoran people. With his sharp intellect, savvy use of social media, and a promise to upend the status quo, Bukele quickly rose from mayor of San Salvador to the highest office in the land. But Bukele was more than just a political phenomenon. He was a symbol of a new generation, one that was increasingly diverse and complex. Nayib Bukele was different from any leader El Salvador had seen before. He was young, dynamic, and unafraid to challenge the old guard. But what set him apart even more was his heritage. Bukele is the son of a Palestinian immigrant, a man who had embraced Islam later in life. Religion has always been a powerful force in El Salvador, shaping not just the spiritual life of the nation, but its politics, its culture, and its sense of identity.
أشهد الله إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله.
In recent years, a growing number of Salvadorans, born and raised in the Catholic faith, have found themselves drawn to Islam. These conversions, though still small in number, are significant. Each one represents a personal journey, a deliberate choice to embrace a new identity in a land where Catholicism has reigned supreme for centuries.
Most people here used to be Catholic. I myself became Muslim 22 years ago. I learned that Jesus is not God, but a messenger of God, just like Ibrahim, Noah, and Muhammad.
The future of Islam in El Salvador is uncertain, yet full of potential. As the nation continues to evolve, so too does its religious landscape. The Muslim community, though small, is part of this evolution, a testament to the diverse tapestry that is modern El Salvador. El Salvador is a land of contrasts, where the past and present collide, where ancient beliefs blend with modern identities. The story of Islam in this country is not just one of survival, but of resilience, of quiet perseverance. It is the story of a faith that, though small, has left an indelible mark on the nation. As the crescent moon rises over the Andes, it carries with it the hopes and dreams of a community that has remained steadfast in its faith, despite the challenges it has faced.